And I have a giant plea to every journalist or commentator or columnist that's covering politics. Read the fucking election returns for once in your life.
James, this was supposed to be last weekend, a big weekend for Donald Trump. Military parade celebrating his birthday and underscoring that the Democrats, as so many columnists and commentators write, are down, dispirited, and in disarray. I think it turned out the other way. I don't think that the parade was a bomb, but it wasn't. It wasn't the kind of lift that he was looking for. The soldiers didn't seem particularly excited. It was good to celebrate the Army. Nothing wrong with it. But on the other hand, the counter demonstrations, protests, were just remarkable. There was anywhere, depending on estimates, from 2 million to 5 million. And they were in states all over the country, red and blue. They were in small towns. They were in urban communities. They were almost all peaceful, and they were demonstrating against Donald Trump. Well, I had people tell me they were living in a town of 4,000 people and 2,000 turned out. They didn't even expect it. And I would just say a couple things. Number one, I think the easy narrative is the Democrats, the pitiful Democrats. They've lost a terrible election they shouldn't have lost. They're dispirited. They're in disarray. There's no energy. Well, guess what? There is energy. Not only was that shown last weekend, they're winning elections. James, wherever they hold elections, they're winning. You know, Wisconsin, Omaha, and our friend Jim Gerstein says if you look at every special election that's been held this year, Democrats are running by more than double digits ahead of where they were last time. So I don't think Democrats are in as bad a shape as the conventional wisdom.
Okay, I want to point to some, I think, recent and really compelling evidence, but I want to address the parade for a second. I've seen a lot of people say that the troops didn't look enthusiastic. They were marching, they were not marching with precision. Generally, of something of that length, the CO will issue a command to what they call, I think, route step, which is somewhat of a formation, but it's not like you're really marching in formation. If you're going on a long, uh, you know, long maneuver, you don't stay, hut two, three, four. You just try to keep the ranks somewhat tight. I suspect that was going on. And what I don't know if they like snap to as they pass the review exam. I guess they would have, but I wouldn't make too much out of what appeared to be relatively undisciplined troops. I'm almost sure they were under a different command or something different.
Yeah, I agree.
We want to talk about Democratic, and I saw in the Atlantic, who's usually a bright guy, I think his name is David Graham. And this has become the coin. This is how you show that you're smart, is you'd say there's no way out for Democrats. They have no enthusiasm. They have no leadership. Last night in the Commonwealth of Virginia, a Democratic primary was held. And it was a Democratic primary that did not include a governor's primary. So you're asked to vote in a party primary for lieutenant governor, attorney general, whatever. In 2021, the turnout in that primary was 200, early vote was 200. In this one, it was 400,000. There were 470,000 people that voted, which is extraordinarily high in a Democratic primary in Virginia, and particularly in a Democratic primary in Virginia where there was no headline race. It was all the undercard. So I wish, and don't ever listen, so I'm not worried. I understand that I'm just talking to air, but I wish this whole woe be, the Democrats are, there's no enthusiasm, there's leadership, no one cares, they don't give a crap. Why don't you look at the election returns? And that's the last thing that 90% of political journalism doesn't want to do, because an election is a definitive thing. It doesn't allow you to pontificate on your opinion. It's a number. You can compare it to other numbers, and you can see where it is. And I have a giant plea to every journalist or commentator or columnist that's covering politics, read the fucking election returns for once in your life. That's it.
Amen. You know something? Election returns are a hell of a lot more important than polls. I mean, honest to God, I'd rather lose in polls and win in elections.
Yeah.
You cited that Virginia turnout. We talked about Omaha. We talked about Wisconsin. Jim Gerstein on the other. There've only been 2 state Senate seats this year that have, because they're not, these have to be specials, that switch parties, and they switched from R to D. And you mentioned Virginia. I talked to a bunch of Virginia Democrats yesterday, realists, politicians, they are positively buoyant about November. Now, if that doesn't mean something, I don't know what it means, but you're right. It's an easier story. Democrats in disarray, Democrats dispirited.
Look, there's no one, I'd say this program, no one could ever accuse this program of being just homers for the Democratic Party. We have been bitterly critical, I would say, maybe as much as any, semi-left of center podcast or broadcast that there is. But what we don't do on this show, and what we'll never do, is think that there is something in politics more important than people voting, because frankly, there's not.
Yeah.
It's the most important thing in politics is how people vote, well, how they vote and how they vote. And I think, and we'll get into this a little bit with our just stunning guest. I don't know if we've ever had a better guest for a better time than Val is today. I think Trump, unlike the political press, Trump knows what's coming in Virginia and New Jersey. And I think this is playing into this Iran shit that we see it. I mean, he hears hoof prints. I guarantee you. And he's not.
What was the movie? Wag the Tail or Wag the Dog?
Wag the Dog, yeah, something like that. I do think that this is playing in to what he's thinking. But again, another really good showing in Virginia last night in terms of, and look, maybe the enthusiasm is not for the Democratic Party. I would be very, James, they just turn out now because they love Democrats, because they hate Trump. Well, I don't give a fuck why you turn out and vote, just so you turn out and vote for the people that,
no.
Exactly.
Look, we would both agree the Democrats are not without problems. The DNC is in shambles. You and Stan Greenberg are going to write a piece about some of the false perceptions of Democrats. So it's not that they're not problems, but those who say there is no energy, there's no enthusiasm, every bit of evidence suggests to the contrary.
Yeah, asking a Democrat, are there problems in your party, or like asking an NFL player, where does it hurt? It hurts somewhere. I guarantee you that. No,
and it always hurts.
It always hurts. Okay, there's no time you're not hurting. But I just think this is in terms of the crowds. A lot of that there was a lot of people that showed up, and most of these people were pretty far left. But that's great. But they're part of the coalition, and it shows that there's real freaking enthusiasm out there. Real enthusiasm.
Yeah, and some of the communities that I was talking to people about, they weren't left or right or center. They were just average citizens from really pretty small towns who came out spontaneously. Yeah. And it is anti-Trump.
That No Kings marketing of it was pretty smart.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's something that we can all agree on. And it's part of what he's doing. I thought it was a good rap, and I thought it was good for the Supreme Court to see that.
Yeah,
I really did.
Yeah,
it was beneficial, and I don't know who came up with that, but hats off. It was a good idea.
And someone, I think your point earlier about the marchers and not read too much into that is absolutely right. But there was a couple stories that Trump went absolutely ballistic at the Defense Secretary Hegseth because he said they weren't enthusiastic enough about me.
Right.
It was my birthday.
So
screw the Army. I mean, we know they're suckers and losers.
You're a soldier, okay? You have different ships. A lot of them have weekends. Liberty, or what do we call it? Liberty? I forget what they call it in the Army. You get a shore pass is what they would call it. And so it's Saturday. So you gotta get wherever you are. They gotta move you from what used to be Fort Bragg, which is named after buffoon Confederate general. I don't know what they're trying to go back to name it. You got to load up on buses. You got to go. Then you got to sit out. Then you got to, then you got to get, the parade starts at 11. It starts at 5 in the afternoon. You got to get there at 1 o'clock. You got to sit in the middle around. It's fucking hot. And it's June. All right. You want to be with your girlfriend or your boyfriend or whatever friend you got. And you're having to sit there and march 3 miles for this asshole. And you don't look enthusiastic. Gee, I wonder why. I wonder what soldier has ever been enthusiastic about marching in the late June heat in Washington, D.C. What a fucking disaster.
Yeah. James, I'm going to give you another looming disaster for Trump and the Republicans, and that's the big, beautiful bill. Now, they are going to pass something because for them, failure is not an option. But whatever they pass, and it's not going to be done by July 4th, I don't think, it's going to be a travesty, policy-wise and political-wise. Balloon the deficit, enrich the rich, stiff the working class. That's supposed to be the Trump base. Every reputable study, not just CBO, the Penn Wharton School, Yale Labs, says that there's a net loss here for the working poor. And the Senate, in trying to take a dreadful House bill, may have made it worse. They would cut more people off of Medicaid. I don't know why these people don't understand how popular Medicaid is. They would threaten the closure of rural hospitals. They're trying to put out this absolute nonsense, crap, if you will, that it's all about waste, fraud, and abuse. It's not. It's about taking working class people off of Medicaid. And on taxes, they try to say it's just, in order to keep the economy humming, the tax cuts go overwhelmingly to the very rich. And that is totally, I think, counterproductive, certainly politically. Great issue for Democrats next year.
Okay. So I'm not sure they're going to get it through.
Yeah.
Look, so I listened yesterday, which I do on the radio, to, I guess it was Fox Business Channel, and it was Larry Kudlow in United States Senator Mike Crapo. I think I'm pronouncing his name right, from Idaho. I think he's the chairman of the Finance Committee.
He is.
You could not imagine the depth of bullshit that we were talking about. Now, we don't listen to that. Okay. This was, did you know that this big, beautiful bill was going to have 6% growth for 10 years? It was that level of sheer stupidity, and they were all agreeing with it. And, if you didn't know any better, and let me tell you, everybody's going to get a tax cut. We're not cutting anything. Everything's going to be expanded. We're going to have 6% growth. We're going to have to figure out what to do with the extra money, because we're going to pile up so much money on these taxes, and we have dynamic scoring. But what kills me is literally they have been wrong about everything every time. And it's the same shit. You got to listen if you can. If it's some kind of audio left of it, you have to listen to this. And you go, I'm not just beating my head on the steering wheel of my Broncos saying, they can't be saying this shit again. Yeah, they're saying this shit again.
James, I'll tell you why. They don't have any option. That's all they have, because the bill is a piece of crap, and all they can do is actually lie.
So Sidney and Sean Blumenthal and Sean Valens, two former guests on this show, have a podcast, and they had Norm Ornstein, who's I think it's safe to say that Norm is a kind of congressional expert over the years.
Yep.
He didn't think they can get reconciliation. And what's going to come out the Senate is going to be worse than what came out of the House.
Yeah.
It's going to be worse.
Deeper Medicaid cuts.
And so you're a House member. So they come to you and they say, so Johnson comes in and says, look, there's no way we can redo this and go back. We got to take the whole thing. And from 30 House members, this is significantly worse than what they already voted for. So wait a minute, I already walked the plank for you, Speaker. I walked the plank for the president. Now they can make the plank 4 feet shorter. All right. And I'm not just jumping into the ocean, I'm jumping into shark infested ocean. They have screwed these guys so hard that I think sometimes you see a politician and you actually at some level feel sorry for him. And that guy from Omaha, Don Bacon, he don't know whether he's coming or going. And they got him out there stuck every which kind of way you can be stuck. And you know what they're going to do? They've already raped him and they're going to rape him some more.
Yeah.
That's just what they're going to do to you, bro.
James, Norm knows a great deal about Congress. The only reason I think something is going to pass because I think they feel failure for them is not an option. It would be
Well, he
devastating
didn't
for
say
them.
it wouldn't pass. He said that they couldn't do it through reconciliation.
Well, they don't have any other choice because that's the only way they can avoid a filibuster in the Senate. They're dead if they have to do it some other way. But
Well,
but
but anyway, that's what he said.
no. But in
Yeah.
any event, it's going to be. Let me give you one example. There are a bunch of ads they're running here, and I suspect maybe only here to try to affect members. And this is the Republicans and Trump, and they have on veterans and retirees and small business people saying if Congress doesn't extend these tax cuts, it's going to be devastating for us. Well, basically, the option is not between extending all the tax cuts or none of the tax cuts. The Democratic position has been quite clear. They want to extend the tax cuts for those making less than $400,000 a year and not for the billionaires and the super wealthy, not for the hedge fund and private equity executives. Now, that would, if you take the Republican approach, it's going to increase the deficit by 4.2 trillion. Yeah, 4.2 trillion. The Democrat, they have 400,000 or less, would cut that in half. And you know what? You can argue whether that's good or bad policy, but not a single one of those retirees, veterans, or small business people would lose a cent if they went that way. It's a really duplicitous ad.
So this guy on CNN, Harry Eaton, I think I'm pronouncing his name right.
Yeah, and he's very good.
He's good. Yeah, he gets a little animated on TV, but I don't mind that. He was going through the numbers for the big beautiful bill, and the guy was literally gasping for air.
Yeah.
It was in one poll it was 26% underwater, in another poll it was 29% underwater. I think 23% of Republicans have an unfavorable view of it. You have to look at the segment. And I thought the guy was going to melt down right on TV, but I've never seen anything like this. This is where this is starting. This is so, when we keep hearing this, he continues to get away with it. I don't think he's getting away with it right now.
Yeah.
I don't think the public likes this at all. At all. But I would watch this guy's segment. You know, and he has his board, and I think
he's pretty good. No, he's pretty good. And I people don't know as much. When they know more about this bill, it's going to get more unpopular. First of all, there are extraneous, things in there that the parliamentarian may throw out. They prohibit the states from regulating artificial intelligence. I thought this was a states' rights party. Whatever you think of AI, they go and they loosen gun restrictions, which has nothing to do with reconciliation and budget. And once people know what exactly they're doing on both taxes and on Medicaid and other things, if it's 57% unpopular now, it'll be 67 then.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's not. There's nothing but bad news coming, and they know that. And we'll get into it with the conversation with Val, but Trump knows that. That's to me, that's 80% of what's going on in the world right now. Is the walls are closing. He's in the pit, and the pendulum is, swinging back and forth, and it don't look good. And he's trying to escape. His parade, lashing out at everybody. We talk about how many buffoons in this administration. Tulsi Gabbard said in March that Iran wasn't close to a nuclear bomb. He went nuts. Then Pete Hegseth has got, he's screaming at Hegseth because the parade wasn't what he wanted. The guy in the Pentagon that Hegseth listened to, I'm told, his nickname is the Gorilla. Boy, that ought to make you feel good.
His name is Carrillo, really. Yeah. No, it's Hey, James, I think you got to cut him a little bit of slack because let me tell you something that you're forgetting. He is an old man, an old man. He had a birthday. You and I can talk about that. He is older than Joe Biden was in his first year, and boy, you know something? It shows more and more every week.
He's, this, but it's crazy. I listened to his press conference he had today, and he just is so far out there. One thing about his age has not diminished his ability to lie. I'll say that in his defense. He can lie at 78 as well as he lied at 74.
Oh, that's deeply ingrained. You're never going to change that, James.
All right.
That's part of the DNA of Donald
Right.
Trump.